And welcome to episode 3 of the Stirke Show. I am your host, Sean Hartnett, and joining me as ever is sound demon himself, Michael Chubb.
Hi, thanks. Hello to all our listeners out there.
Let's just dive straight in. Why not? Enough with the fucking about. There's a really good video going around this week, and the title is simply one of the most satisfying arrests I've ever seen. Now, just to set it up a little bit, there's everyone knows this kind of archetype now with the internet existing. Everyone's more educated and enlightened as to their rights and all that kind of thing. Not so much their responsibilities, who gives a fuck about those, but definitely their rights. You don't have the right to do this to me, yada, yada, yada. But making policemen's lives fairly difficult. Or police officers, as they're known now, after seeing Hot Fuzz. Everyone's seen Hot Fuzz. But they just, they're very insistent on, you can't do this to me, you can't do that to me. Every now and again, they do actually, do something. They can do something to you. And this video just effortlessly proves this. This woman gets pulled over by this cop. And let's just let the video speak for itself.
He's an Article 4 free inhabitant, so he does not have to have a license. This is on recording. Article 4, free inhabitant, pursuant to the Articles of Confederation. You can look it up. It's in the United States Book of Codes. It is your laws you have to follow.
By the way, listen to how many times this woman says pursuant. It will drive you fucking insane.
All right, I won't do that. Watch back here.
Article 4, free inhabitant, pursuant to the Articles of Confederation.
Put the camera down for me. Is that if it records, that's fine. But I don't want you holding anything.
No weapons, no weapons. All right, no.
Okay. So what I'm going to ask you to do is the same thing.
I get out of the car?
Yes.
No.
The epitome of politeness, by the way, you'll notice from this man, he's really not one of the bad ones. She has immediately started off on the wrong foot with him.
Getting out of the car.
All
You
right.
can go get your superior.
Well, I am going to tow this car, and you cannot be in the vehicle while I'm towing this vehicle.
Well, if you go get your superior,
That's not
he'll
gonna happen
clarify
right now.
that he can be set free because he does not
It's
have
not
to have
going
a
to happen
license.
right now, young lady. So either you're going to come out of the car on your own free will, or I'm going to assist you.
I'm gonna get out of the car and walk down to that house.
No, you are not free to leave right now.
Are you saying you have authority over me?
Yes, I do.
You have proven authority over me.
Yes, I do.
How did you do that?
The County of Imperial through the sheriff.
You do not have authority over a human being,
All
over
right,
a free
you know what?
inhabitant.
Do you know-
What kind of fucking bullshit logic is that? You do not have authority over a free human being. Again, this is the hypocrisy of her argument. I think the technical aspect of her citizenship is that she is one of these people who has declared independence from the government. Like, she's one of these stateless citizen type people who have that passport that isn't really a passport. So they don't really abide by any laws. But at the same time, that also means that they therefore don't have any rights. You can't have it both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it. Listen to the fundamental hypocrisy of this woman's argument.
Argue the point?
You need to go look up your
I don't have to
laws.
look at anything right now. What I need to do is get you out of the vehicle. If you have identification, please hand the identification over to me.
No.
Identify yourself to me.
And I'm not going to step out of the vehicle.
All right, well, you are impeding my investigation. You are delaying me, which is a penal code violation in the state of California.
That law only applies to U.S. citizens.
Well, we're a U.S. citizen.
I am not a U.S. citizen.
Then
I am
you're
a free
mistaken.
inhabitant. I am of the earth. I do not belong to any corporation. I do not belong to any
Yeah,
country.
but as
No.
long as you're in the sovereign states of the United States, you will abide by the rules
No.
and laws.
See,
and you have
a
certain
free
protection.
a free inhabitant is they are allowed to. They're free people. They have all of the rights of a U.S. citizen without following any of their laws.
Well, that would just.
Oh, God. Oh, that is fucking enraging. I mean, this is one of those police shootings that I think most people would be like, now in fairness to him, come on. Give him the benefit of the doubt here. I mean, did you hear that? A free, I'm paraphrasing here, but a free inhabitant pursuant laws, whatever the fuck she said, is bound by the US's laws, right? Which is handy for her. They have all the rights, but they don't have to they don't have to obey any of the laws. Why haven't criminals caught onto this yet? Why aren't criminals just like this new pirate state where they all have this passport? I mean, why isn't everyone like this? All the rights, none of the laws.
Anarchy,
No,
if that were the
no.
case.
You go ask.
Oh, that's okay. She's part of a peaceful people. Oh, we've gotten our answer. That's fine. Yeah, I mean the law doesn't apply to peaceful people, and we just have to take them at their word. I mean, if they're smuggling drugs in the back of their car or something, it's grand. We don't need to check that or anything because they are all a peaceful people, and we can't do any investigations or hold them accountable for any of their actions. That's fine. No, I mean that makes sense.
Call them up and ask him, and they'll tell you exactly what I'm talking
Well,
about.
I don't know who to call.
Your superior.
Well, I am a superior to a certain extent.
So call your superior.
Well, it's going to take a couple hours or so for somebody to come down.
Well,
And
just
that's
call
not going to
her.
happen right now.
Well, then we're gonna have to solve it some other way.
All right.
Blowjob.
You need to call in, tell them I'm a free inhabitant, and find out what
Well,
that
I
is.
am going to tow this vehicle, young lady, so you cannot be in this vehicle.
I understand that. So all right, then I'm gonna get out of the vehicle and I'm going to walk down to that house
No, you're
because
not.
you do not have authority
you're
over
not.
me. Well, then I'm not getting out of the vehicle.
No, you're not.
Why?
You're not free to leave.
Why?
As soon as I conclude the rest of my investigation, you will be free to leave. As far as I know, you have not done anything wrong at this point. But you are slowly reaching to
Okay,
that point
you know what?
148 PC.
I'll get out of the vehicle for you. I will get out of the vehicle. I'm kidding, mother.
All right, well, you're not free to leave.
Watch.
You're going to take the bag off.
Best
no,
bit.
Take the bag off.
No, I'm not. Hey! You're raping me. This is rape. This is rape.
Oh my God, she is just the representation of every bad element of this generation. The modern woman. I mean, everything is rape. He's a fucking police officer who knows she's recording him, and he's just trying to get him to show identification and step out of the car. And suddenly, when she starts trying to run away, he has to obviously subdue her. Therefore, it's rape. Personally speaking, I don't believe in rape culture. I don't think it exists. I think it's just one of these terms that's kind of populist, and anyone who disagrees with it is automatically a rapist or misogynist or whatever the fuck the term du jour is. I think that it's even if it does exist, it's a dangerous concept to not allow anyone to disagree with you in the first place. Usually, concepts that are true stand up to examination and logic. They don't need to have people censored. They just make sense. No one needs to fight for the premise of 2 + 2 equaling 4. It just does. We're all on the same page in that regard. So if rape culture has to be enforced this way, and people have to believe it because they're scared they're going to be fired or ashamed online or whatever the case may be, probably not a good sign about its validity. But the thing is, if rape culture does exist, then this is rape culture. This culture of women being able to shout rape at any fucking time they want, at the drop of a hat, to excuse them of some of the most abhorrent behavior ever. I mean, there was a story a couple of months ago about a fucking taxi driver who was taking home a group of girls one night that were drunk, and he obviously wanted payment for his services, as, capitalism works. But of course, one of the women, and I use that term loosely, demanded that she didn't want to pay. So she came on to him. He didn't accept her advances, and she got offended, and she slapped him and left the car with her friends, where she proceeded to call the police and start shouting rape and all this kind of thing. And so obviously he drove off scared, but luckily for him, he had the footage in his car. And when they questioned him about it, he showed them the footage, and it was actually the woman who ended up getting punished. I forget how the story ended, but I'm pretty sure that she had some sort of like contempt of court type thing, or like what's the term when they lie? Perjury. She had that kind of thing going on. So it's like, in as much as there was a serious problem with law enforcement services and just like society in general not taking rape cases seriously, historically speaking, like women were never really given the benefit of the doubt. I mean, it took a lot. They needed to have proof basically with them in order to be taken seriously. That obviously was a problem. I think not only have we we haven't figured out a perfect system, but we've certainly figured out a system that essentially treats them with the decorum and respect that they deserve, and gives them it's innocent until proven guilty aspect, in the sense that they're not assumed to be liars until it's investigated. So we do, by and large, have a good system. Is it perfect? No, there's not really any perfect system that I know about. But it's certainly not accusing all women of being liars, and it's certainly not accusing all men of being, rapists. So, but it works more often than not. If there is rape culture, it's this. It's women just being able to say that this happens far too often, and this isn't nearly rallied against as much as men being assumed to be liars, like being in positions of authority and supposedly not taking rape cases seriously enough. I think that happens a lot less than this type of shit. And if it were up to me, I would absolutely instill a law that would say, okay, if you're a woman and you make a false rape allegation against a man, then not only should you have to serve the term that he was being asked to serve if he was convicted of the rape, which, let's say, for the sake of argument, if it's 7 years, let's say she gets that, but that's only the punishment that she was willing to give to him. That only makes us even. Then she actually has to be punished for the crime of perjury, for actually being audacious enough to lie. That requires an extra sentence onto it, which I don't know what perjury is, but again, let's just say it's like 4 years, then a total of 11. Good enough to her. But that doesn't happen nearly enough. That it simply isn't happening. I mean, they more or less get off scot-free. It's one of those like laws that should be a law, but that isn't really a law. I mean, it's way biased in their favor, and is a perfect example of how the courts are kind of skewed. It's exactly what men's rights activists and that whole McTow movement and stuff. It's like on the front fucking page of their manifesto is shit like this, and this woman is just the perfect representation of everything that is wrong with rape culture.
Relax your arm.
It's relaxed.
Stop fighting with
It's
me.
relaxed.
Stop fighting with me. Stop fighting.
All right? I'm not fighting.
Section 256. I got a bad of X-ray.
Here, I'm lifting my arm up.
Leave your arm right
It
there.
hurt. Okay, I told you what I was doing.
This is pain compliance, okay? It's not meant to be comfortable.
This is
Do I have your attention?
This is completely illegal.
Nope.
No! Take my bag off!
I can't.
You're not putting me in the car. You can wait till you get superior. You are not taking
Listen
my
to
bag
this.
off. You can handcuff me with my bag on.
You're right. I will.
Father Jack in a minute, look. Listen to the fucking expletives that come out of her mouth.
I'm relaxed. You got my bag! You got my bag! You're gonna get in so much trouble, you son of a bitch! You're gonna get sued! You don't even know what you're doing! I'm telling you, I'm gonna fucking sue you!
Stop.
What's your name? Argadona, you're gonna get arrested. You're gonna get fucking... Oh my god, you don't know your own laws!
Relax,
You don't know your own laws!
Relax, young lady.
Young lady.
You just
I love the patronization.
You need to calm down.
You're gonna get in trouble. You don't know your own laws.
Calm down.
You're illegally doing this. I told you I was a free inhabitant.
Calm down.
You are illegally doing this.
Therefore, I can do anything I want.
You are illegally doing this. I told you this is against my will. You did it illegally. You cut my bag.
All right,
my
you're
will.
under arrest.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Give me my stuff.
Relax.
No.
You're
Leave
under
me alone.
You can't have this big camera right
You can go get your superior.
I will
Go
put
get,
it
and
right-
I'm
put it
waiting
right-
right here. Go get your fucking superior. You son of a bitch. Give me my fucking stuff. You fucking asshole.
You need to calm down.
You need to fucking learn your goddamn job because you don't know your fucking laws. Go get your superior and go get your fucking laws.
Let's go.
No. You son of a fucking bitch. Fuck you. You stupid son of a bitch. You don't know what you're fucking doing. You're gonna get fucking in trouble. Oh my god, you son of a...
This is against my will. This is not what I want. Therefore, you can't arrest me. Why didn't other fucking drug dealers and murderers try that one? Like, you know, you can just imagine fucking sitting in the interrogation room. Oh wait, hang on. Did I say the bit about me not wanting this to happen? Oh shit, I didn't. Okay, sorry, this is against my will. And then the police officer managed to go, oh, well, he's fucking pulled a fucking ace card. Let him go, boys. You know, oh, do you have bus fare to get home? No? Okay, here you go. What the fuck do these people expect? I mean, that was just fucking absurd. It's just... now you can understand why it's titled one of the most satisfying arrests I've ever seen. Yeah. Okay, in the news this week, we have an announcement from Oslo that it will become the first major city to ban cars. I thought this was fairly big news. I mean, they're doing this now. It's cities are essentially in the West, they're now just going to ban cars because of like emissions and pedestrianization and stuff. I mean, not to sound like Alan Partridge or whatever, wondering about the pedestrianization of Norwich city centre or something, but it seems like they're actually going to do this now. It's like being rolled out. It says, Oslo plans to ban all cars from its city centre by 2019. So not even like a dystopian future thing. This is happening in the next couple of years. It said it'll also build more than 35 miles of bike lanes by 2019 and invest heavily in public transport. The permanent ban will affect the 350,000 or so car owners in the Norwegian capital. It says Oslo's car ban is the largest of its kind, says Paul Steely White. What a cool name. The executive director of Transportation Alternatives, an organization that supported New York City's city bikes and advocates for car-free cities. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird. It is one of those kind of declarations, almost like the Playboy thing that we discussed, was it last week or the week before, where we were talking about how emotionally resonant it was for me. I mean, it's almost visceral. You kind of want to come out and go, what, no cars? Like, how can they do this? Because everyone loves a Mustang, everyone loves a fucking Aston Martin or whatever. They like that thought. But when you actually sit down and quantify it, when you weigh up the benefits and the negatives, like, does it kind of make sense? There are fairly strong arguments for it. I mean, cities obviously are very polluted. The smog and things like that, you only have to take a look at a fucking picture of Shanghai to see this. It's evidently negative for our health. We're taking years off our life, on average, living in the city. Traffic, of course, is a fucking nightmare for anyone living in the city. Imagine that just gone in a heartbeat. Imagine everyone being healthier because of bicycles or public transport, which also would get heavily invested in, as the guy said, to the point where it could actually become theoretically free. If they're going to take away your car, well, not take away, but I mean, it would be pointless for you to have it because you can't use it, so you may as well sell it. But let's say if you didn't have one, obviously they would need to provide a different mode of transport for you. They're not going to leave you stranded or something. It's not some sort of like, totalitarian diktat. It's just basically saying this is a better way to do things. Of course, the libertarians amongst us and all that kind of like, hardcore conspiracy people will say, oh, this is part of the New World Order, and oh, they're trying to make you like, sort of, what's the word, like just kind of isolated and just stationary. But in truth, I think on a day-to-day basis, this probably would be better. I mean, and I'm not even saying this just because I can't drive and I don't have a car, and this would be pretty fucking good for me if this were to take place in London. But I do see the benefits to it. I don't know if the ban would work. I mean, well, it would work, but I don't know if it'd be a good thing. I think the option should be there for both, and I think that it should be gradually eased into the point where people no longer want cars and they do want to just actively become and contribute to like a healthier society and sort of become unencumbered by having to buy such an exorbitant expense that a car is, and obviously all the maintenance and upkeep and stuff, all the petrol. I mean, it's a huge thing. Again, I get they're stylish, I get they're nice to have, but if there was a better alternative available for you, why wouldn't you take that? If public transport was free and it was ridiculously frequent and it was faster to just make your way because there was no traffic. Again, we're not dealing with public transport like now where you get on a bus and you're just in traffic with other cars. This would be public transport in the purest sense. It would almost be like those futuristic trams you see like in dystopian futures where like they're all just kind of zipping about some kind of city. It's like it's seamless. So there are strong arguments for it. I'm not as against it as I think the average person probably is. So yeah, it's an interesting proposition, especially so close. That's the thing. I mean, again, I couldn't get over the fact that it's 2019. Yeah, I think you'll start to see these become more and more common. And I don't think it's like a kind of possibility. I think it's more of an inevitability. We do have news here in London. It says here, Labour has accused the government of planning legislation that could cause everyday racism and widespread discrimination in the housing market. The immigration bill will make it a criminal offence to rent accommodation to illegal immigrants. But Shadow Home Secretary Andy Burnham told The Independent on Sunday that it could cause problems for anyone with a foreign-sounding name. The Home Office had said checks that would be made on a non-discriminatory basis. Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? It's very contentious, obviously, but essentially they are planning legislation that would kind of make it illegal for illegal immigrants to rent. Now, personally, if you'd have asked me this before, I thought that was the way it was. I thought that we were actively trying to not encourage illegal immigration. Not immigration, illegal immigration. Emphasis on illegal. I always thought that crimes were actively, like, you try to dissuade the people from doing them. So I would have thought that this would have been done earlier, and if not, that of course it's in the best interests of people to not enable illegal immigration by facilitating them. I mean, I would have thought that everyone would be on the same page. I don't know who's making the arguments for pro-illegal immigration. I mean, it causes an untold amount of damage to our national economy every single year, and very few benefits because they simply don't pay for themselves in tax. So it's kind of an unjustifiable thing to come out for. So it's a bit of a weird thing there. But nonetheless, they are pushing through this bill. It says that Mr. Burnham described the bill as disproportionate, divisive and deceitful. He said that the aim of the immigration bill is to make Britain a hostile environment for illegal immigrants. Yeah, I should fucking hope so. Illegal immigrants are committing a crime. I mean, again, are they murderers? Are they fucking drug dealers, whatever? No, they're not that bad, but it is still a crime. I mean, does a police officer go to a school and try and, what's the word? De-incentivize? I don't know. Try to make the kids realize that a life of crime probably isn't a good thing? Yeah, because they might just be graffitiing or doing some minor vandalism, but they know to nip it in the bud because, a safe society has very little crime. You don't tolerate. I mean, it's not draconian. It's not fucking hanging illegal immigrants by the neck and killing them. It's just making policies that obviously make their life a little harder, which obviously I would have thought that everyone is in favour for. Surely you want people who are going to contribute tax. Surely you want people who are kind of, participating in society, who are legal and have skills and, are just good fucking human beings. Why wouldn't you want that? I just don't understand the mentality of being pro-illegal immigration. Again, it's not about immigration. It's about illegal immigration. There's a huge fucking difference that people just nowadays don't seem to actually get. So yeah, I think that this Andy Burnham guy, in as much as he's going to one end of the spectrum and saying that, it would make it harder for anyone with a foreign-sounding name, I think that's a bit of an exaggeration, to be honest. It's about as drastic as, people on the other side kind of saying that we need to push through this bill specifically to get the Muslims out or something. It's not going to happen. It won't happen that way. I mean, the truth lies somewhere in between. The truth is that, we clearly should be trying to de-incentivize people from committing crimes on any level, and we do need to put in laws that obviously aid that. So yeah, it's a tricky one. He said that the new document checks would become the modern equivalent to the no dogs, no blacks, no Irish signs, which were fairly ubiquitous back in the day. I heard the stories from old Irish people who used to come in the pub. Just to be a stereotype, my parents did used to own a pub, so we used to they used to talk about it every now and again. That was a genuine sign. I think that people who don't know about that are kind of shocked that was a thing. No dogs, no blacks, no Irish. I think actually Reginald D. Hunter has a really good bit about it in his comedy act about how people don't realise this, but it's only a relatively modern phenomenon that the Irish are actually liked in the world. I mean, before this, we were the Polish. We were always the immigrants and stuff that went to other countries. We went to England during the wars to fill up the factories. We went to America, for a chance at a better life with all the immigrants going through Ellis Island. But we were an encumbrance on everyone. We weren't particularly skilled, we weren't particularly educated, weren't rich. We had far too big families. We were just kind of a burden. And Reg D. Hunter, he had this fantastic phrase that he'd heard during his time in Europe. He said that the Irish were known as the niggers of Europe. And he told his father this. He went back to, Louisiana or something, where he's from. But he told his father about it. He said, "Hey, Dad, did you know that the Irish are the niggers of Europe?" And then his father said to him, "White folks won't let black folks have nothing." I always remember that. But yeah, it's a bizarre piece of history that the antithesis, like the 180 change in Irish people's sort of kind of the view on Irish people, internationally speaking. But yeah, I think this guy Andy Burnham, he's sort of being slightly naive in the sense that he is making it sound like there is no correlation between illegal immigration and certain sounding names, like Middle Eastern names or whatever. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that a landlord would check someone's passport and their documents specifically because they do have a Middle Eastern sounding name, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I mean, like, it's not the fucking Icelandic people that are coming over here illegally. It's not the Americans that are coming over here illegally. It is certain proportions of people from certain parts of the world. I mean, to suggest otherwise is just naive. So, it's like this whole obsession people have with political correctness and stamping out any form of bias or anything like that. It's like, you can put in place all the laws you want. You can put in place all the kind of equality acts and affirmative action type things, but it doesn't stop human beings' potential for pattern recognition. It's just too innate in us. We know that if we run off a cliff, we're most likely going to die. We know if we put our hand in a fire, it's most likely going to burn us. We don't need to keep doing these things time after time because we know how shit works. We learn from our mistakes. And if you have as we have in the last 40 years, 50 now actually, because I always do that thing like where I think 10 years ago was the 90s. So this is back in the 60s now, which would be 50 years ago because we're in the teen years of the 2000s, and 50 years ago now we've had mass immigration, and there's quite a lot of people that would say that it hasn't worked. I mean, David Cameron himself, was it last year or the year before, came out and said that multiculturalism hasn't worked, it sounds like a strong statement, which I actually kind of respect him for taking such a side, which I then also disrespect him for the fact that he forsook that partisan view, and I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago where we said it would almost be better if he just stuck with one side, because at least he'd have his allies rather than forsaking both, because now he has no one that really likes him. But an even weirder facet to that story when he came out and said it was that none other than Angela Merkel joined him on the international stage and said that multiculturalism hasn't worked. Both of whom are now in support of taking in, countless migrants. Obviously, one is worse than the other. Angela is taking in an absurd amount of people in comparison to the UK, but we're still doing our part. We've actually, again, to a lot of people who are saying the UK hasn't pulled its weight, we've collectively contributed more money than every other European state combined. We've given them over 1 billion euros, which is more than any other European state combined. So, go us. But yeah, so it's like, I don't know, it's a bit naive to think that if this law did go through, that landlords wouldn't check certain sounding names. Of course they would, because there is a direct correlation there. It's not racism, it's just historical fact. So yeah, I don't know, it's just a borderline denial. In a kind of, I guess, a similar news story, this week we had a fairly widespread news story here about this Sikh fella. He jumped on live TV during the was it the One Show? Yeah. And there was like a debate happening, and essentially, Sunday Morning Live. They were discussing the week's events, and this Sikh fella jumps on camera, and he basically starts to shout about Sikh lives matter because of the previous story earlier this week about two Sikh fellas being killed. It says here, after the deaths of two protesters in India, Sikhs around the world have been using online protest tactics to highlight what they say is an injustice. And one supporter went off topic on a BBC TV programme to make his case. When pages of the Guru Granth Sahib, Sikhism's central text, were found, that's not one you hear very often. You always hear about the Quran, the Torah, and the Bible. The Guru Granth Sahib, it's the first time I've heard of it. Sikhism's central texts were found ripped up. Protests spread across the Indian state of Punjab. So someone found a few pages of their book, and the shit hit the fan, essentially. And they expect us to respect them on an international level. Police used water cannons, batons, and live rounds to disperse the crowds, and at one protest last week, police opened fire, leaving 2 dead and more than 50 injured, according to reports. One of those shots, 27-year-old Gurrit Singh, had reportedly gone to give food to the protesters, according to an interview with his father by the Indian Express newspaper. Online and in the streets, a movement quickly sprang up. Tweets showing his body and photos of other injured protests were shared widely, along with the hashtag #SikhLivesMatter. I guess that's sort of piggybacking on the whole Black Lives Matter thing. Yeah, again, just this weird non-equality movement where it seems like everyone else's lives matter except for white people. Try getting a white lives matter thing online to see if that works. It's not really equality. Equality is everyone's lives matter, including the police who are being executed mercilessly by certain thugs over in America. But nope, that would actually be equality. Why on earth would you want that? So yeah, he basically jumps on live TV and starts shouting about it, which is, it's always weird, isn't it? Like when something happens in live TV, it's just very disconcerting. It's like, it's almost like there are no rules. Like when you see things like that happen, it's just really kind of bizarre. So it just shows you that how little control the people have. Like you often see pranks and stuff online about happening in the background of certain live reports, and you wonder why it's even a thing anymore. But I mean, the Americans are fascinated with live TV. They'll do a live report from anywhere. It's like that whole kind of police chase thing with the helicopters. It's like one of those Americanisms that's kind of found its way across the world. They'll do live reports even when it doesn't matter. Like let's say there's a shooting in one of their schools because it's a fucking Tuesday, and they go live to the place where it happened. They'll stand like a mile away with no footage of the school, no footage of shooting, no CCTV footage, just so that the woman reporter can just stand there going, oh, I'm live in Aurora, or whatever the case may be, and I'm reporting here. And it's like, it doesn't add anything to the story. You may as well have just saved the money and not sent your reporters out and wasted everyone's time and get the van and the fucking flights and all that kind of thing, and just had them do it from the studio or some green screen, because it's just a waste. It doesn't add anything to the story. But that's the thing, it's a deceptive practice, because it makes you think it's adding something to the story. It makes you think, oh my God, she's live, what's going to happen? Anything can happen. No, nothing happens. Nothing ever really happens. It's just kind of a bizarre thing that it still exists. Ebola is now an STD. Yes, that has happened. That is the headline coming from ARS Technica, a weird website. It's all about technological things and sciencey boffin type thingamajigs. And it says the first case of sexual transmission of the viral disease is documented in Liberia. Months after a male Ebola survivor tested negative for the disease, he transmitted the deadly virus to a female partner through unprotected sex, a genetic analysis has revealed. So he was found negative, like it was gone in his system, or at least dormant, and he can still transmit the deadly virus to a female partner through unprotected sex. The shit just hit the fan, people. I mean, now it's like, it's do you know when you hear that whole thing about mosquitoes and how every time, it's kind of like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. By the time you've done it, you have to do it over again. And when it comes to mosquitoes, when you've found a repellent or like some sort of pesticide to kill them, they adapt so quickly that all it takes is for like one mosquito to be born with a genetic mutation that allows him to survive the thing, and all he needs to do is breed within the next couple of hours, and you have a whole new host of mosquitoes that your pesticide isn't effective on. And now it seems like Ebola itself has kind of made its way to the next level and become an STD, which is just fucking bizarre. Yeah. The Liberian woman who became ill with the disease and died in March is the first person known to have contracted Ebola from sex. Typically, people contract Ebola from direct contact with the blood or bodily fluids from a sick or recently deceased patient. It says his blood tested negative for the virus 155 days before the pair had sex. Jesus, that's like fucking half a year. Fucking hell. It's a mad world, Michael. We have another story in the news this week. Another video that went kind of viral, I guess you could say, was this racist rant that a woman went on a bus here in London. In fact, it's kind of weird, weirdly sort of specific to me, because she was on a bus and she started going off on this Muslim who I don't think actually did anything to inspire her wrath, just kind of, going about being a Muslim. But the bus she did it on, it was in Wembley, which is like one town over from me. And then when she got arrested by the police, the place she's going to be tried in is Hendon Magistrates Court, which is on the other side of me. So the chances are she was like, going about on our bus ride. She might have even passed me on the day that I was, going about my business, and I would never have known, her just spewing this racism at this woman. But yeah, it went fairly big this week. But it says a woman has been arrested after footage appearing to show a racist tirade on a London bus was circulated online. The video, which has since been removed, shows a pregnant Muslim woman being verbally abused and threatened. A 36-year-old was arrested on suspicion of a racially aggravated public order offence at her home in Willesden Green on Friday, the Met said. The funny thing is like I've seen the video, and it's funny, if only for the fact that this woman is a black woman and she's shouting at a Muslim, but the thing that she's saying to the Muslim is, go back to your home country, which you gotta love that fucking irony. You've gotta love the denial in a person that you can say anything to them. You can almost say to like a Muslim, you can say, oh, I disagree with you politically or religiously. You can say, oh, why do you wear that thing on your head? Or you can almost say anything to them, and from a black woman's standpoint, it might appear to be legitimate. It might appear to be, okay, well, that's her opinion and she can think what she wants about it. But the one thing you really can't say is, go back to your home country. It rankles with everyone. I think everyone who heard that was thinking, like, evidently in the comment section, everyone was just going off. They were saying like, oh, how can you say this and stuff? It's just, they weren't even disagreeing with her, because a lot of people were kind of saying that, by definition, a Muslim who wears their religious apparatus so vehemently and blatantly is kind of an incendiary thing. It's essentially identifying them as part of, for want of a better word, a cult that believes in obviously misogyny and homophobia and prejudices and racism of all kind. So it's kind of like the Middle Eastern equivalent of wearing a white hood. It's just a very incendiary and explosive thing. So like the obviously atheist internet didn't take too kindly to her. It's like they were kind of trapped between a rock and a hard place. They didn't really know who to agree with or disagree with, because they didn't even agree with the Muslim for wearing that kind of stuff, as evidenced by the comments below. They're not their stock isn't very high online. But they were definitely coming out at the hypocrisy of the black woman, if nothing else, because it is just a bizarre thing to say to someone who is, well, let's face it, not white. That's kind of the point, I think. It's like no one would say to a white person, go back to your home country. And like, I'm white myself. It's like someone would even have a more justifiable time saying to me, go back to my home country, because I don't know if you can tell by my accent, but I'm Irish. So they would have more of a kind of a better argument against me, but no one really says it to white people. And again, I'm not rallying against it. It makes sense. There was no one here before white people. They were the first in the UK. So to them, there is nowhere to go home to. They conquered, they dominated. I'm not exactly sure of the migratory patterns, but I'm sure it's some form of like, what it was like before Romans. So who was that? Like it wouldn't be the Teutons, would it? What are they called? It wouldn't be the Normans. That's like 1,000. Who was before the Celts? No, Vikings maybe. When were they? Fuck, there's too many of them. You've been conquered too many times. Yeah, it's hard to keep track. But essentially, there was no one here before. It wasn't like there was like loads of Native Americans here just running about like, dancing around fires and stuff. And then we got rid of them. And then, white people came in. And now white people can't even say to other people like, oh, go back to your home country, because white people themselves have taken it over. No, white people were pretty much here first, so I think more or less it's regarded as theirs, just like you couldn't really tell a Japanese person to go back to his home country if he was in Japan. There's nowhere else for him to go. It's kind of appropriate. And by the way, in case you're thinking like, black people can be born here and they're British, and Muslims can be born here and they're British. Yeah, technically that's true, and they do have British passport and stuff. There is still a point there to be made, though. I mean, it's not exactly known, like, historically speaking, you can be tolerant without being revisionist. It's not about denying, like, that person isn't a citizen anymore. It's acknowledging that, look, in truth, the UK has been white for as long as it's been the UK. So it's not unreasonable to expect it to be seen as still a white country. Maybe going forward that might change. We might all become some sort of beigey brown, but historically speaking, you just can't deny that it is a white country. And as, by the way, this is a mentality that's shared between everyone. It just so happens to be sort of flipped on its head here. I mean, if you look at the actual Native Americans over in that they're America, they constantly fucking bang on about the white man coming over in his boats and taking their land and, you know, defeating them militarily and stuff. Like, they viewed it as their land because they came over, what was it, the Bering Strait from Russia to Canada and then went down south. So they viewed it as their land, which I guess to a certain extent it is. They kind of conquered it. They took over and stuff and founded fairly powerful civilizations. But, you know, they were defeated by pretty much Spain, Portugal, and then eventually the UK, and then indeed Americans themselves. So it's like that, you would never call America a truly white country, not without people snarkily saying to you, oh, but it wasn't always, you know, it was Native American and stuff. So there is a certain kind of plant your flag type mentality where it's like the first people to come will always probably be known as that kind of country's people. I think we just need to kind of move past that. We can go, oh, look, that's going to be the truth. It probably always will be, but it doesn't stop people from doing stuff in the future. Just don't be revisionist about it. So yeah, I think that's what the majority of people had a problem with, you know, online, was just the hypocrisy of the whole thing. But yeah, speaking of contentious immigration opinions, we have a leading candidate in Cologne's mayoral race has been stabbed in the neck by a man claiming to be angry over the country's refugee policies. Henriette Recker, an independent candidate supported by Chancellor Angela Merkel's CDU party, was seriously injured along with an aide. 3 others suffered minor injuries. Local police said that Mrs. Recker, 58, was stable but not out of the woods. Police have arrested a 44-year-old German national and Cologne resident. The attacker told police he stabbed Miss Recker because of anti-foreigner motives, senior police investigator Norbert Wagner said. The suspect appeared to have acted alone and had no police record, Mr. Wagner added. Ralph Jaeger,
I feel like it could be pronounced Wagner. Could it not be? Is it spelled W-A-G-N-E-R?
It is indeed, but
It could
fuck
be
it.
Wagner.
Fuck it. This is BBC News, and we're in the UK, and if it's news here, then they'll play by our rules. If I was in Germany, I'd say Wagner, but we're doing
Wagner.
this here.
It's like Wagner, you know, the
the
famous,
musician,
like, so come on, like, I feel like that
No,
warrants it.
no.
Wagner. I need to say it with a German accent. Wagner.
I'm gonna dig my heels in. No.
Right, fine.
Wagner.
Okay, right. Well, that's my 2 cents. Right, no, I'm out.
The first signs, Ralph Jaeger, regional interior minister, said the first signs speak for a politically motivated attack. The attacker will undergo a psychiatric examination to understand whether or not his primary motive or if he had a health problem. It's like it's really kind of getting contentious over there. I mean, you've never really seen a more sharp divide in Europe as well. That's probably not true. World War II, that was pretty big. But basically, this for a long time, since then probably, this is probably the most contentious issue that has struck us since. There is, as it stands, hundreds of thousands of them pouring in, and if you want to speak country to country, opinions are divided. Central Europe appears to be more or less in favour of them, and then pretty much on the outskirts, people aren't. So pretty much all of Eastern Europe isn't for them. A lot of the Mediterranean countries aren't for them, and then the British Isles aren't for them. But the Central Europe are pretty much for them. But even within certain countries, that divide again is very clear cut, because it's driving ordinary people to do things they honestly wouldn't have done. There's countless stories abominable grammar, I apologize, are countless stories of normal people being pushed to commit fairly heinous acts. Like they're burning down migrant centers, sometimes with migrants in them. I don't think there's been any deaths of yet. They've managed to quell the fires and stuff. They've destroyed vehicles that are ferrying the migrants from place to place. There are entire villages and towns that have become fairly militant in Germany, that have literally dug stakes and have started like watches and militias and stuff and weaponized themselves to stop any migrants from coming in, which is, again, I find it really hard to come out against them, because I saw there was one town, it was a population of 3,000, probably not even a town, a village almost, and they've been expected to take in 6,000 migrants. Like, that's twice their population if you can't do maths. It's going to overrun them. There have been stories of the government physically seizing property. There was a story about a woman, a nurse, who was actually part of the pro-migrant movement. She'd helped them. She was the one who was administering aid to the ones who came to the country and were ill or injured in some manner. She actually had her apartment seized by the government to make room for immigrants. She's been given a couple of months to find new a location to live, and she said she was in shock, and that she can't believe that she helped them, and now they're doing this to her and stuff. Although part of me thinks, well, fuck it, if you help with that, bringing them in, then, you should be the first one to give up. If some people don't want to help them, then that's their choice. But if you're going to be the one that encumbers your country, then it's kind of right that you should suffer. And not right that you should suffer, but right that you should be the first to suffer if anyone's going to suffer. So it's just ridiculous that, like, outright laws are being flouted and people are seizing property, seizing money. It's ridiculous. And the mayor of the town, I think it was actually, I think it was Munich, to be honest. He came out and expressed disappointment and anger as to why the woman would go to the media with the story, and said he was disappointed in her and stuff, and as if he expected that they could do this to people and it would go unnoticed, or at least uncommented on if people did notice. It's just an absurd kind of situation Germany finds itself in now. But I think that crimes like these will certainly be on the rise. You can't expect to do this to an entire country and not have anything happen. It's just the numbers are ridiculous. And like I said, I can't find myself to say that I wouldn't be pushed to such extremes if my own house was being taken, if I was being forced out on the street in a couple of months to make way for people who aren't going to pay tax, who aren't going to contribute. I'm not being rewarded in any way. There's just nothing in it for me that a government could do this to me as an individual, and systematically almost break a country, especially in the short term. I don't know how it's going to work out for them long term, but short term, it's going to break them. It would just be absurd to me. I mean, of course you would fight that. It's like, what right do they have to take away your property, to take away your possessions, to throw you out on the street, to, just to encumber your life in such a manner, like a day-to-day life. Your job's going to be made harder. Your crime's going to spike categorically. There's going to be serious social unrest, racial, religious hate. Entire new crimes, by the way, will be invented. I mean, it's like here in the UK where we've experienced honour killings and stuff. There's never been a recorded honour killing until the advent of mass immigration in the 60s, when it kind of became far too common for people's liking, where daughters would just be like stoned or something for kissing a white boy, or there was literally a story in the paper this week of two parents who killed their 3 children because they became too westernized. It's tragic. I mean, there are outright crimes being invented in these countries. I mean, it's an undeniable statistic that Sweden, Sweden, the peaceful, really nice place that is kind of a hallmark for, the Scandinavia and one of the most peaceful places in the world, that Sweden has become known as the rape capital of Europe, with their experimentation with mass immigration, and rapes are up 1,400%, with 75% of those being illegal immigrants and undocumented citizens. So there are so many negatives and very few positives. And again, it's kind of tragic, because you want to have a calm debate about it. You kind of want to say, well, look, these are the statistics, these are the points. Can we just sit down and talk about it? But no, of course, everyone's a racist who disagrees with it. It's such a contentious issue that, it's just such a sign of a poor argument if you can't even debate the people who are making some fairly cohesive and sound, logical, rational points. So yeah, that's that for Germany. Let's finish on. There's a bit of an update too. I think we were speaking. Was it last week? We were saying about Harvey Villachase and Ghostbusters and female things and all that kind of stuff. Kristen Wiig, her I will say Vig because this is the West and that's the way she says her name. So she's Vig, not Wig. But she came out this week and said that she was bummed by the reception that an all-female reboot of the Ghostbusters got. It says here, this is from Variety, when an all-female reboot of Ghostbusters was announced, many fans took to social media to decry the gender bending, and one of the new additions to the spirit-busting crew, Kristen Wiig, was not happy about the backlash. In an interview with the LA Times to promote her new film, Nasty Baby, Wiig revealed that she was bummed about the gender-focused controversy and said that this is the first film that she's been a part of that's garnered so much attention. Quote, the fact that there was so much controversy because we were women was surprising to me, she said. Some people said some not really nice things about the fact that we were women. It didn't make me mad, it just really bummed me out. We're really honouring these movies. Okay. No, you're not really honouring them. Honouring them would be leaving them the fuck alone, allowing everyone to just like them the way they are. I've not even seen Ghostbusters, of course I know about it, but it's, from what I know, it's a fairly popular film. It stands up in people's estimation. It's very intrinsically tied with nostalgia. People are quite protective of it. So like I said, I don't like remakes in general. I think they're just fundamentally unoriginal by definition. I just don't think that they're necessary. Just if you like a thing, then just leave it be. It's sort of like, I don't think you can ever improve on perfection. If you're going to do a remake, certainly don't do a remake of a film that was well received. Do the Stanley Kubrick thing and adapt a book or something that was kind of mid-level of appreciability. Like, if you look back at Stanley's work, he always took a novel that was, it didn't do badly, but it didn't do well either. It was just more or less middling. Stephen King's The Shining, Anthony Burgess's A Clockwork Orange, Arthur C. Clarke's 2001. They're all books that, at the time they were released, were just okay received. Some were pretty good received, but no one was like, this is a masterpiece. This was the best book ever. Stanley had his fucking, his cap screwed on when he did that, because he knew that when you take a book that did okay, it means that there was a gem of an idea there. There was some diamond in the rough. There was some way he could polish it and perfect it. But at the same time, the proper compliments, the whole, this is the best thing ever, would be reserved for his film and not the book. It would be said that he improves on the original source material. So to me, a kind of reboot of something that was well received is pointless. But yeah, I don't know. It's just
so your main problem with this is that it's a reboot, not so you're not now, this isn't a gender bashing thing, shall we say?
No, I fucking hate it for that reason too.
Yeah, that's a separate reason that you hate it. But it's also the remake of it.
Yeah.
What's so bad about it being all female? What's I know I was saying it last time.
It fundamentally defeats the point of equality. If you're saying that women are equal, then there's no point to it. It's not an addition. It's not a positive thing to bring to a story, because again, we can't use positive or negative when describing gender. If you're going to say that one gender isn't better than the other, then what's the point in changing it out? It's even if you could make an argument for why substituting women would be a better case in this scenario, then you also have to deal with the hypocrisy of the fact that it never happens in the other way around. You're not going to get a male Sex in the City. It won't happen. Number one, we don't want it. We're not asking for it. But also, it's just no one's going to fund those kinds of projects because they're far too contentious. It's every single way. It's we can change it one way, but not the other way. It's ironically not crossing the streams. You have to only do it one way. You can only allow women to take the places of men. You can only allow black people to take the places of white characters. It's just such arbitrary bullshit. The focus should be on creating better, more original content. And if you are a person who espouses the view that, oh, it's a patriarchy and white men are keeping you down and all that kind of thing, then prove them wrong. Write a fucking script. Don't just stand there with a finger pointing complaining. You're like, you know when they say as a kid, oh, even if you don't fight against the bully, you're still as bad as him if you remain silent. Well, if you're just like the fucking geeky kid behind the bully urging him on, if you yourself are just standing there like complaining about a problem but not actually doing anything about it, write a fucking script or keep your yap shut. It's the hypocrisy that gets me. We're not playing by the same rule book. It's not a good thing. In fact, I would actually say it's a negative thing for it to be replaced by all women, simply for the fact that it doesn't make sense to. It's this whole, again, female empowerment thing where it's like it's feminism but not feminism. It's the appreciation for everything that is masculine but retrospectively applied to a woman. It's about taking another demographic's culture and adopting it to your own rather than creating your own, which is original enough. Like it's just claiming that for women can do a man's job and that should do a man's job, and oh look, they're not scared of things, because women are never scared of things, right? I mean, they don't traditionally jump up on seats when a mouse runs past. No, they'll be fine tackling ghosts and stuff because they can be tough and they can fight against ghosts and ghoulies, and they can be the leader in a horror film, and they're not gonna subscribe to fucking archetypes and tropes that are based on chemical reactions and non-revisionist history. I mean, it's not as if men have always protected women from things. No, that archetype doesn't exist. That's completely unfounded. We're completely equal, and we can just do each other's jobs and nothing will ever happen. Like, there's no reason why society is the way it is. There's no reason why in every single society that's ever been discovered, men have been the dominant leaders and have protected the women in, I think, all but maybe a handful of cases, from the very heart of Saharan Africa with the tribes that are made up of a handful of people, right through to the fucking empires of Rome or the Mongols. It was always a patriarchy. It got us through to this point. There were certain archetypes, like women are more nurturing, women are more interconnected with children and better at compassion and caring. Men do protect the herd. They do protect the fucking, the cave. They bang their sticks. They kill the animals. They scare away the ghosties and ghoulies. So it's not a positive thing to change it to women, because it simply doesn't make sense. And I get the point that it's not meant to really, it's fantasy and they can do whatever they want. Fine. If you're going to go down that argument, then just know that you're contributing to the problem, because today it's, they can scare away ghosts and stuff. Tomorrow it's saving Privatess Ryan or something, where it's an all-female reboot, and it's all the women stormed the beaches of Normandy because that's how World War II happened, and they represented just as much as men, and we're a fucking hair away from completely revisionist history that just denies that women were ever different to men. We're just becoming one androgynous fucking people, and it annoys the fuck out of me. It's just little things like this, if we change it to women, that's a positive thing. That's enough of a justification to inspire a whole new franchise. And it's just the most tenuous of fucking changes, just to make a quick buck and reboot something that is inevitably going to make millions. And it's just it indoctrinates an entire new generation into this acceptance that these roles are kind of transient and you can interchange them, but only one way, not the other way. So, in conclusion, Michael, that's my problem with it. I don't know if I explained that enough, but yeah. So that is my problem. It's just, again, this story just needed to be said, because the fucking naivety that Kristen Wiig is saying, we're really honouring these. No, you're fucking not honouring them. You're dishonouring them. If you want to honour them, get together with a couple of friends and watch them. Have a laugh. What is the point of honouring them with an inferior, subpar product that everyone is going to universally hate because no one likes remakes, and they especially don't like feminist propaganda remakes? So I can't wait for this film to fucking bomb, either critically, because the critics will say, it's not as funny as the original cast, or commercially because people hopefully won't go and see it to support that kind of propaganda. So, yeah, boo Kristen Wiig, shame on you. And on that note, we are going to end. Just a few more points of business. Thank you to WAC again here in Belsize Park for hosting us. If you want to contribute to the show, you can find a link in the description below to contribute anything you'd like, a penny or £1 million, whatever you want, it's up to you. And what else is there? I think we'll probably start putting links in the description as well for videos and the articles that we comment on, just so you can see directly for yourself, just so you know I'm not lying and bullshitting you, or just making this up off the top of my head. Or you can pause the video, go and check out the feminist being just fucking annihilated by the police officer, and then come back and hear our commentary on it. Whatever you want to do, whatever order, it's up to you. But we'll put the links in the description nonetheless. And I think that is it. We shall see you back here next week. See ya.